I never imagined I'd be the one to turn against my own blood. But when someone poisons the well you all drink from, sometimes the only way to survive is to speak the truth, no matter who it hurts. It started with a phone call. "Naomi," my mother said, her voice breaking. "Daniel sold the farm." My mind went blank. "What do you mean, sold it?" "The land," she whispered. "Grandpa's land. Our land. He sold it to a developer. It's gone." I stood in my kitchen staring out the window, the mug in my hand slowly cooling as the weight of her words crushed the air around me. That land had been in our family for 4 generations. My great-grandfather planted the first trees there. My grandfather built the house that still stood, even if weathered. And my mother? She was born in the back bedroom of that house during a spring storm. We were raised to believe that land wasn't just property. It was legacy, memory, blood in the soil. And Daniel? He knew that better than anyone. He knew. And he sold it anyway. Daniel and I grew up like siblings. We were only 10 months apart, and when his parents died in a car crash when he was 11, he moved in with us. I remember that first night. He showed up with one duffel bag and a silence I didn't know how to break. He didn't cry at the funeral, didn't say a word for days. Just sat by the window in the guest room, staring out at the cornfield like he was waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. My parents did their best to love him like one of their own, and I tried too. Slowly, we became inseparable. We'd build forts in the hayloft, steal plums from the orchard, and chase fireflies until our knees were covered in grass and dirt. He used to call me Bug because I always had my nose in a book. I called him Shadow because wherever I went, he was right behind. But Daniel always had a knack for finding trouble. He could lie without blinking. He once stole money from my mother's purse, then cried so convincingly that she apologized for accusing him. I knew he did it. I found the bills under his mattress, but I didn't tell. Because he was hurting. Because I believed he'd grow out of it. Because that's what family does. After college, I moved out of state. Daniel stayed close to the farm. He said he wanted to help Grandpa manage the property. I was relieved, in a way. Grandpa was getting older. He needed someone strong, someone trusted. And if Daniel wanted to be that person, I wanted to believe he could. But I noticed small things when I'd visit. He started dressing sharp, talking in business lingo that sounded borrowed, taking calls during dinner, saying things like liquidation and capital improvements, while Grandpa quietly ate his mashed potatoes in silence. When I asked him about finances or plans for the land, he'd wave me off. "Don't worry about it, Bug," he'd say, still using that old nickname. "I got it under control." And I wanted to believe him. But then Grandpa died. And everything changed. At the funeral, Daniel was calm. Too calm. While the rest of us were crying, hugging, sharing stories, he was already on his phone in the back of the chapel. Later that week, we gathered at the farmhouse. My mother, her sisters, and a few cousins. We assumed there'd be a will. Grandpa was old school, organized, meticulous, thoughtful. But Daniel told us otherwise. "There's no will," he said, sipping coffee like it was any other Tuesday. I checked. Lawyer confirmed. Everything defaults to me, since I'm the listed executor and the only one who's been maintaining the land. I remember the silence that followed. No one spoke. My mother just looked at him. He shrugged. "I'll make sure everyone gets something," he added. "Just give me time to sort it all out." We nodded, hesitant, uncomfortable. But grief makes you quiet, makes you passive. You want to believe people you love won't take advantage of you while you're bleeding. But Daniel? He was counting on that silence. 2 months later, we found out the land had been sold. Not discussed. Not offered. Not negotiated. Sold. To a faceless corporation planning to level the farmhouse, uproot the orchard, and build luxury vacation rentals. We weren't even told until the paperwork was finalized, until bulldozers were scheduled. And Daniel? He was gone. Moved 2 states away. New job, new apartment, new life. He had taken the inheritance of an entire generation and vanished. I stared at the contract for hours. The sale documents, the signatures, the dates. None of it sat right. And then I remembered something. A dusty folder Grandpa once showed me in the attic. "Everything important's in here," he said, "in case they ever try to forget what matters." I drove 3 hours back to the farmhouse, now locked up and posted with "coming soon" signs. I climbed through the broken side door, walked to the attic, and found the box. Inside, a manila folder marked WL-1996. Signed, witnessed, notarized, clear as day. The land was to be divided equally among my mother and her sisters. Daniel? Not even mentioned. I felt my pulse in my ears. He didn't just lie to us. He forged a story, buried the truth, and walked away with the future of our family in his pocket. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with the will in one hand and a photo of Grandpa in the other. His face was kind, weathered, honest. He deserved better than this ending. We all did, so I got to work. I scanned the will and emailed 3 lawyers before the sun rose. By that afternoon, I had one on the phone, a woman named Carla who didn't blink when I said the words. Forged sale, stolen inheritance, family betrayal. Within a week, we had a case. Daniel had not only lied to us, he had bypassed legal heirs, misrepresented property ownership, and sold land without full authority. Fraud. It was textbook. Carla drafted a motion to freeze the proceeds from the sale. Filed it fast. We served notice to Daniel and the developer. And then, I waited. It was the kind of waiting that eats at you. I imagined Daniel living comfortably, drinking wine in a new condo bought with stolen money, while we stared at photos of the orchard being bulldozed. But justice, like grief, is slow. And when it finally moves, it moves loud. I didn't want to just win quietly. I wanted the truth to matter. So I told our story. I wrote it all. Every lie, every document, every broken promise, and submitted it to a regional newspaper under the title, "The Cousin Who Sold Our Legacy." It blew up. Not because we were famous, but because the story was too familiar. People had their own Daniels, their own betrayals. The article spread from local press to podcasts, Facebook groups, even a short segment on the evening news. I wasn't expecting it. I just wanted our side heard. But suddenly, it was everywhere. My inbox flooded with strangers, farmers, grandmothers, cousins, telling me they'd been through the same thing. Some just said thank you. Others asked how we fought back. That's when I realized something. This wasn't just about land. This was about truth. About accountability in the places we're told to stay silent. Family, tradition, legacy. Daniel responded with silence at first, then threats, then desperation. He emailed me once. The subject line read, "Let's fix this privately." I didn't open it. He sent another. "You're ruining my life." But I wasn't. He had ruined it himself. I was just finally holding up a mirror. A month later, the court ruled in our favor. Daniel was ordered to return a majority of the funds from the sale. The developer backed out of the project. The land, though technically lost, was no longer his profit. And his name? It meant nothing in town anymore. His job let him go. His girlfriend left. His apartment complex didn't renew the lease. He tried to disappear again, but it didn't matter anymore. The truth was already out. We couldn't buy back the farm. The sale was legally irreversible. But with the settlement money, My mother and her sisters bought a smaller piece of land 3 miles away. Untouched, quiet, and just big enough for something beautiful. They built a memorial garden. Native flowers, tall grasses, a bench with Grandpa's name etched in brass, a space open to the public, free for anyone who needed peace. My mother goes there every Tuesday, brings a book. Sometimes she just sits with her hand resting on the bench, eyes closed. "I feel him here more than I ever did in that house," she once said. And maybe she's right, because legacy doesn't live in wood or brick. It lives in how we honor what we inherit and how we protect it. Daniel still writes me. The last letter came 3 months ago, 4 pages. Apology, blame, confusion, regret. The final line read, "You exposed everything. Was it worth it?" I didn't reply. But if I had, I'd have said, yes. 'Cause when someone burns down the past, you don't rebuild in silence. You plant new seeds in the ashes and make sure no one forgets where the fire started. My cousin betrayed our family, so I exposed his secrets. Not to punish, to protect, to reclaim what mattered. To remind anyone listening that silence is not loyalty, it's surrender. And I refuse to surrender again. It's been almost 2 years since the ruling, since I stood in a courtroom and watched Daniel squirm in a chair he never expected to sit in. Since then, life has quieted. Mostly. The garden my mother tends has become something of a sanctuary. Not just for her, or for us, but for the entire town. People come from all over. Some to walk, some to grieve, some just to sit and remember what honesty feels like. And me? I come once a week, every Sunday afternoon. I bring fresh lilies, Grandpa's favorite. I walk the curved path lined with stone markers and native trees. I breathe in the silence, not the kind that hides truth, but the kind that comes after the storm has passed. Last week, as I approached the bench under the oak tree, I saw something unexpected. A man sitting alone. Shoulders slumped, hands folded tightly. It was Daniel. For a moment, I considered walking away, turning around, protecting the peace I had earned. But something rooted me to the ground. I walked forward, slowly, sat beside him. We didn't speak for a while. Finally, he said, "I didn't think you'd come." I didn't answer. He continued, "I know I don't deserve to be here, but it's the only place that still feels like him." His voice cracked. "I didn't expect that. I was angry," he said. At life, at losing my parents, at how easy things seemed for everyone else. I turned to him. "So you stole what little we had left?" He didn't argue, just nodded. I thought if I had the land, maybe I could finally be in control of something. The air between us was heavy with decades of silence and misunderstanding. I let out a slow breath. "You could have had us," I said quietly. "You didn't need to control anything. You just needed to be honest." He looked down. "I know that now." And then he reached into his coat pocket. "I wrote you something," he said. "Not for forgiveness. Just in case you ever wanted to understand." I took the envelope. Didn't open it. "Not yet." "I'm not saying this changes anything," he said. I wanted you to know I see what I did. And I'm sorry." We sat a little longer, and then I stood up. "I don't hate you, Daniel," I said, "but I'll never trust you again." He nodded once. It was the kind of pain that didn't ask for a hug or a goodbye, just acknowledgement. I walked away. He stayed on the bench, and I didn't look back. I never told my mother he visited. Some things don't need to be passed along. I did read the letter. Later, alone. It was clumsy, regretful, honest, in the way a man writes when he finally understands the cost of his decisions. He said he wasn't expecting peace. He just hoped I could carry the truth without carrying hate. And I think maybe I can. Because hate is a chain, and I've already broken mine. These days, I teach a writing class at the local library. Mostly older women. Many of them have stories like mine, not about land, but about betrayal.
Secrets. Loss.
And they're finally learning what I learned too late. You don't owe silence to someone who stole your story. You owe yourself the right to tell it. My cousin betrayed our family, so I exposed his secrets. And in doing so, I found something deeper than revenge. I found freedom. I found truth. And I found the strength to leave the door open, just wide enough for healing, but never again for harm. Every story holds a lesson, and sometimes a reckoning. What you've just heard isn't just drama. It's a reflection of the choices we make and the truths we hide. If the story moved you, there are more waiting to unfold. Subscribe. If you like the video and want to see more, turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist. Like, share, and leave your thoughts below in the comments, because every voice matters and every secret deserves to be told. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next story.